April 13th, 1945, the final weeks of the Second World War in Europe. Deep inside the occupied Netherlands, the 1st Canadian Army stands poised at the edge of the city of Zwolle. The city, with 50,000 civilians, is heavily defended by a German garrison. The standard plan is simple but brutal: a massive artillery barrage to soften the defenses, followed by a full-scale assault. But the Canadian command hesitates. The shelling will destroy the historic city and kill the very people they have come to save. There has to be another way. A final, desperate option is put on the table. Send in a 2-man reconnaissance team to gauge the enemy's strength and, if possible, contact the local Dutch resistance. It's a suicide mission. But 2 men volunteer: Corporal Willy Arsenault and his best friend, a private from the Régiment de la Chaudière named LÉO Major. To understand what happens next, you first have to understand the kind of man LÉO Major was. Born in Quebec, he was a tough, independent, and notoriously stubborn soldier who had little time for authority but an unbreakable loyalty to his comrades. His war record was already the stuff of legend. On D-Day, during the chaos of the landings, Major single-handedly took on a Hanomag half-track. After killing its crew, he found it was carrying secret German communication codes. His capture gave the Allies a vital intelligence advantage in those first critical hours. But his defining moment came months later, in the brutal, muddy slog of the Battle of the Scheldt. While hunting an SS patrol, a phosphorus grenade detonated beside him. The searing, white-hot chemical burned through his face and gear, destroying his left eye completely. The medics were clear: his war was over. He was to be sent back to Britain. For any other soldier, this would be a ticket home. For Major, it was an insult. He stormed up to his commanding officer and flatly refused to go. When the officer protested, Major delivered the line that would define his legend: "Sir, I am a sniper. I only need one eye to sight my rifle." Astonishingly, they let him stay. It was this man, stubborn, fearless, and with only one good eye, who now crept towards the German lines in Zwolle with his best friend. Just after midnight, under the cover of darkness, the 2 friends slipped into the city's outskirts. Their luck, however, had run out. A German sentry post spotted their movement. In the first burst of machine gun fire, Willy Arsenault was killed instantly. LÉO Major watched his best friend fall. In that instant, the mission vanished. The plan, the orders, the objective, it all evaporated, replaced by a singular, cold fury. This was no longer about reconnaissance. This was about vengeance. He took Willy's weapon, checked his own ammunition, and looked at the dark silhouette of the city before him. He was going to make the Germans pay for what they did. All of them. His insane one-man war on the city of Zwolle was about to begin. His first move was a piece of psychological genius. He ambushed a German patrol vehicle, capturing its commanding officer. He marched the officer into a nearby field, disarmed him, and then gave him his weapon back. He told the terrified German that at 6 a.m. the Canadian artillery would obliterate the city and that a full-scale assault was imminent. He let him go, knowing the officer would spread panic through the garrison. Then the chaos began. For the next several hours, LÉO Major became a terrifying phantom. He would sprint down an alley, toss a flurry of grenades towards a guard post, and then run to another block and unleash a full magazine from his submachine gun into the air. He made so much noise, firing in different locations in quick succession, that the Germans were convinced an entire company of Canadian commandos was swarming through their defenses. He would hunt down German patrols, capture 8 or 10 soldiers at a time, march them out to the Canadian lines, and hand them over to his bewildered comrades, before simply turning around and running back into the city alone. He did this multiple times throughout the night. His primary targets were symbolic. He located the local Gestapo headquarters and assaulted it, setting the building ablaze. He did the same to the local SS barracks. By 4 a.m., he finally made contact with the Dutch resistance. They were stunned to find that the entire attack was the work of a single one-eyed Canadian soldier. Working together, they began securing the city center. By now, the German commander was in a full-blown panic. His patrols were disappearing, his command posts were on fire, and the sound of battle was everywhere. Believing the story from his captured officer and the evidence of his own ears, he concluded the city was lost. He gave the order for a full retreat. At dawn on April 14th, when the main Canadian force began their cautious advance, they were braced for a bloodbath. Instead, they were met with an unbelievable sight: cheering Dutch civilians waving orange banners and the flag of the Netherlands. The city was free, and it hadn't been destroyed. They soon found LÉO Major, exhausted but alive, linking up with the resistance fighters. For his actions at Zwolle, LÉO Major was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal. But his story doesn't end there. In 1950, when the Korean War broke out, he volunteered again. In November 1951, during the brutal Battle of Hill 355, Major and an elite scout platoon were tasked with retaking the key position from a massive Chinese force. For 2 days, they fought off relentless human wave attacks. At one point, Major led a counterattack of just 20 men against 2 entire Chinese divisions. They fought in the trenches, in brutal hand-to-hand combat for hours. By the end, they had held the hill. For his leadership and incredible bravery, Major was awarded a second Distinguished Conduct Medal. He is the only Canadian to have ever received that prestigious honor in 2 separate wars. LÉO Major lived a quiet life after the wars, returning to his home in Quebec. He was a humble man who rarely spoke of his actions. But in the city of Zwolle, he is a titan. He returned many times as an honored guest and has a street named after him. He proved that history isn't only shaped by grand armies and famous generals, but by the extraordinary courage of a single individual who simply refuses to quit. What other unsung heroes of World War II deserve to have their stories told? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story as incredible as we did, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another one of our tales. Thanks for watching.